Welcome to the Primo's Musings podcast.
All right. Good evening, Amit. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm
All
excited
right.
about the draft.
Team.
We're just 4 days away. I'm pumped up.
Yes, yes. We'll quickly get to it. The National Football League, which is probably the most richest sport in the nation, in the world, is going to schedule its NFL draft, I think 3 days between April 24th to 26th in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Presents a great opportunity for all the 32 teams to pick the players that they want, depending on their needs. Let's quickly get down to just like I think from at least let me quickly give not the whole 32, the first round at least. The first round you have Tennessee Titans, Browns, Giants, and the Patriots, and Jacksonville, New Orleans, Bears, Jets, 49ers, and Cowboys. So that rounds out the top 10 picks in the draft. So let's quickly get down to your initial thoughts on, and we'll get to the some of the players and things like that. But give me your initial thoughts, then we'll go to the players, then we'll come back on who some of these teams may be taking, and then we can get down to the Patriots part of it.
Yeah, I think for people who've been following, draft stuff, what I'm going to say is not going to be new. But what seems to be the consensus among many draft experts is that there's probably two or three elite players at the top, and a lot of people are saying that after that. So that, I'm talking about Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter, and potentially Cam Ward in there. But after that, it's not like any sort of you have to take this person very compelling. Like everyone else has like holes. So in a typical draft, what the caliber that you would expect in a top four, top five, top 10 pick, it might not be there in this draft. However, people also believe that that extends all the way from four to even like people are saying into the mid 30s. Kind of, you pick your own flavor of players you like. So look, I mean, draft experts have been proven to be wrong in the past. So who knows? But people like you and I, we don't understand this stuff. And, it's a hit or miss, right? We know so many cases where like players who were highly thought of coming out of college didn't do well, and some random third round pick or fourth round pick, becomes a star, right? So who knows? But that's what it's not just 1%, 2%. It's like pretty much everyone who covers it. I'll tell you a couple of people that I respect. I think Daniel Jeremiah is pretty good. I think Mel Kiper's been doing it for a while. I think he's pretty good. There's this guy Dane Brugler who does a very intense study. He's pretty good, and I think I'm hearing that from pretty much everyone about this. So that's that's kind of the overall flavor. Now, having said that, people are saying this is a deeper draft. So all the way up to the third round, there's a good chance teams can walk away with starters depending on the position. And
Mhm.
after that, you kind of get into backups. So that's the general sense that I'm getting.
Yeah, so I think the usual suspects are always there, which is you talked about Cam Ward, who's the quarterback from Miami. Then you got the Penn State edge rusher Abdul Carter. Then you got Colorado's Travis Hunter, who's probably very unique. There's a lot of um, talk on him, because of his. He can be a wide receiver. He could be a cornerback. Probably the most electric player available in the draft.
Hmm.
And then, you got Will Campbell, who's the LSU offensive tackle, and we'll get to the Patriots, and I think that's where a lot of people are thinking he could drop to the Patriots. But then you got the Boise State running back, um, Ashton Genty, So, but then when you look at it, but then there's also the Colorado Shedeur Sanders, who, could he be a quarterback in the league? A lot of questions on his arm strength, a lot of questions on his speed, and he's got despite his accuracy and poise. So let's see what happens. But I think this draft is supposed to be your thoughts on which position seems to be the most promising one, because you did mention that some people have said that the draft is deep, at least going into the
Hmm.
third round.
Yeah.
So which both offensive or defensive
Well,
position do you
third
think?
third round for starters. Okay, I mean it's
Okay.
you can always like find fringe players and backup players right in fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh rounds. I think the consensus again seems to be defensive line. It's pretty deep draft. Tight ends, running backs. I would say those three positions is considered deep draft. It's considered to be a very shallow draft. Uh, Offensive line, receivers is kind of meh. It's okay, not as great as it was last year. And offensive line, especially offensive tackles. So in
Hmm.
fact, Dan and Jeremiah very recently, he said that number of times, but he said that recently as well, that once you start getting into the second round, the chances of finding a quality starter left tackle is low in this draft. Now, that's one man's opinion. And him, like along with everyone else, has been proven to be wrong on occasions, but that's sort of the general impression, right? So May on quarterback, it's not a great draft for quarterbacks. It's not a great draft for offensive linemen, especially tackles.
Hmm.
Running backs good, tight ends good, receivers kind of okay. Defensive line, both tackle as well as edge, is pretty good. Linebackers is kind of okay. Safety is okay, and cornerback is not too bad. So that's the general impression.
I mean, I think last year you had the wide receiver draft was pretty deep.
Yeah,
You
and
had
quarterback, right? I
yeah,
mean,
quarterback too. Yeah,
six in the
like
first 15, and they all turned out to be pretty okay. So
yes, so far so good. Yes, you're right. Um, so let's quickly go down to some of the. Let's go down to the first maybe five picks, right? So
Mhm.
who do you think Tennessee is going to take as a number one pick? I mean, should have been Patriots number one pick if not for the last
I know,
game
man. I
win
know, man.
against Buffalo, because that would have given the
I
Patriots a
think
lot of more options.
I think that's going to be the difference between us getting Travis Hunter and not getting Travis Hunter, honestly. But c'est la vie. I I think I mean it would be a massive, massive shock if Tennessee doesn't take Cam Ward. I think there's like very broad consensus that that is their pick, number one pick,
Hmm.
which probably makes sense for them. I mean, he's the quarterback who is the high upside. There's a risk there, but he has the tools. He's athletic. He's got all kinds of throws and things like that. And in a team like Tennessee, if you have a chance to take a quarterback like that, where there's a high ceiling, you take that, right? So I can see why they would do that. Um, I think pretty much everyone's saying that Browns are going to take Travis Hunter. Now, I don't think this is as locked in as Cam Ward to Tennessee, but earlier it was Abdul Carter to Cleveland, but now it seems to be Travis Hunter.
Mm.
That's again what people like Schefter, Daniel Jeremiah, like a lot of these people, like that seems to be the consensus that's developing. And I'll tell you one thing, I've always been skeptical of these pundits, but like when I look at drafts, I mean, in general, I mean, these guys, these are not their opinions. They talk to teams, they get a sense, they've been around for a while. I mean, I kind of trust their opinion, at least the respect, not some random blog guy, right? But like some
Hmm.
of these guys who've been around, who have deep connections and good network within the league, I think they have a good sense. So Travis Hunter is number two, and a lot of people are saying Abdul Kader is going to be number three. I There's generally seems to be a consensus that Shador Sanders is quarterback, right? Deion Sanders' son. He's a polarizing figure, and some have him projected. In fact, the report is that many teams have him as a second round grade on him. Now that doesn't mean he'll go in the second round, but I think there's again almost like a consensus building up that he's not going to go at least in the top 5, 6 picks. I mean,
Mm.
there's a chance he'll slip into the 20s or teens or something like that. He doesn't seem to have that upside um, as Cam Ward does, which is bad news for Patriots if you want to get one of Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, right? Because you would hope either Giants or someone will go up to that spot. If Shador Sanders was that appealing, someone else would have taken him at three. But looks like that's not going to happen. But you know what? I mean, this is a smokescreen season too. A lot of teams say one thing and they want to do something else. So nobody really knows for sure, but that seems to be the consensus.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at it, I mean, I agree with you. I think Cam Ward, I mean, if he's not going one, he's going two. But I definitely think for a team like Tennessee, their quarterback needs are number one for them. So I think Cam definitely is probably going one. And then, like you said, Travis Hunter going two. It's going to be interesting what the Giants do. I definitely need to get some of my Giants fans on the podcast to see what they would be thinking. Would they go with Shador Sanders or would they go to Abdul Carr? That remains to be seen.
Yep.
Um, that's going to be the interesting one. So here's the dilemma. Say if the Giants take Shador Sanders, and you are the number four pick for the
Mhm.
Patriots, who would you go with? Would you go with a tackle or
Oh,
Campbell
I
or
think,
Carr?
I mean, if people are saying Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, generational talents, and everyone else is a notch below, then you should take Abdul Carter, I feel, right, in that scenario. Because again, with Will Campbell, there's a little bit of doubt about is he going to be tackle guard. If he it turns out to be a good tackle, fine, but he's a little bit. I won't call him undersized necessarily, but I think his wingspan, arm length, those kind of things. He would have to defy the odds and past history of successful offensive tackles for him to be successful. Let me put it that way, right? With some of his body measurements, he would
Mm.
be like he would have to be an exception. I mean, the history is very, very firmly against someone with those numbers to do well as a very successful starting left tackle in the league. Having said that, he's played against top-notch SEC competition and done really well with that same body that he has, and he's shown in college as well. So it'd be a projection. Can he do that in the pros, or does he move inside, right? And if he moves inside, he's not a great pick at four. And so there are these kind of questions pretty much about everyone else. Mason Graham, defensive tackle, like he's considered like
He'll probably
really
go
good.
for five. He'll probably go to the
Probably
Jacksonville
go to
Jaguars.
five. Yeah, but he's really good, but he's a little bit undersized. And you just have Milton Williams, you have Christian Barmore, you have what's his name, White, right, who can slide inside at times. So it's not really a huge position. It might be a little bit of an overkill with Mason Graham, but he's undersized. That's a knock on him. Ashton Genty, there's really no knock on him, except that he's a running back, and I'm a bit skeptical of taking a running back that high. You remember, like Bijan Robinson, he was supposed to be like the next best thing ever.
For Atlanta.
Yeah, and he's good.
He's
I'm
okay.
sure his
Yeah.
numbers are good, but I don't think he's like this unstoppable force. At least that's not my impression. Same thing with Kyle Pitts, their tight end. He's good, but not great. And he's taken at number four, right? So now you have Tyler Warren in the mix, who's considered really good, and then Loveland, the other other tight end as well. So the two tight ends were considered potentially top 10 picks. There's
Hmm.
Aston Genty. So like, if you want to pinpoint, if you want to be like like very touchy about it, you can point flaws in all of these candidates, right? Like, so it is going to be a dilemma, whereas Abdul Carter is considered to be like this generational thing. So I think Patriots do that. Now, I'll say one thing, that recently there have been some rumors about some character concerns with Abdul Carter. Not about how he plays. I think he gives it all and all that, but let's just. So I don't know. I mean, this happens every time, and a lot of times, like Christian Barmore, there were some character concerns about him. He turned out fine, right? Like, so I won't put too much weightage in that. I think if you have a talent like that, you just take him and then worry about. I mean, you still have a big hole on the left side, left tackle, and you have to somehow plug it. But I think you have to take like a generational talent. It will pay dividends later.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk about like everybody thinks Patriots is going to be Will Campbell. I mean, for someone who not only played at LSU, had Jaden Daniels as his quarterback, so obviously he's got experience protecting a quarterback. So I think it's going to be interesting. You know, he was a team captain, so a lot of good things. If the Patriots do get Will Campbell, that'll bode well for them.
Mhm.
So, and then I think Graham is going five. So that's where I'm thinking.
That's what people are
That
saying,
could
right? You never know. I mean, you never know. I'll
yeah.
say this, like, let's say if we don't take Will Campbell for some reason, right? We take Genty or Mason Graham or someone like that. I mean, left tackles, like it's such a premium position, and you really don't. I mean, look at what happened in free agency, right? Ronnie Staley, the Rams guy, like the good guys, they got re-signed. Like no team is going to release like a starting caliber, like really good, top-notch left tackle, and there's just
Hmm.
not enough of them coming through the draft who are really that good. So you have actually right now many teams who are tackle hungry. I mean, look at Kansas City, look at Houston Texans, look at Miami, where that Terran Armstead retired, and many other teams who are just getting by with some mediocre talent at that blind
Hmm.
spot, right? Pretty much almost every team would be in play for someone like Will Campbell or Armand Membu, who's considered like another top 10 right tackle, though he's the right tackle, so right? Nobody knows, like everyone's saying, Patriots Campbell, uh, Jacksonville, like you said, Mason
Graham.
Graham, then Raiders, Ashton Genty, then Jets, Armand Membu, because they have a hole at right tackle. They got a really top 10 pick on the left tackle last year. And then that's seven, right? Eight is Carolina, who's expected to pick like defense. And so Jalen Walker, I think, is like probably the best among the lot, right? Like in terms of a pass rusher. And then nine, maybe Shador, but if they don't do Shador, nobody knows what Saints will do. But, maybe that's a Shador spot. And then 10, it's like either, it's like whatever tackle is remaining, like Kelvin Banks or something like that, right? Like that's what everyone is saying. Like most mock drafts have this right now. But like we saw last year, right, Sridhar, you remember? Like nobody saw like Michael Penix getting drafted that high. Nobody saw what's Bo Nix, right? So there's always surprises. So I'm hope there are surprises because it'll be kind of boring. Like if it happens exactly how everyone is saying.
I think it's even more. I would say it's much more volatile at the top this year. I can remember more
Mhm.
than I can ever remember, because it could go either way, right? I think you're right about Travis Hunter. You got Abdul Carter, Giants. I think Will Campbell. I think Mason Graham. I think you're right, Ashton. And then, do you think the Jets may pick Sanders?
They could.
I mean,
I mean, they could. Yeah. I mean, they should. They should be
well, they don't
thinking
have a
about the
franchise
quarterback.
QB right now,
Yeah. I mean,
so
Justin
they
Fields,
could.
I don't think is a long-term solution. I think they're taking a
No,
flyer on him.
yeah.
And that's the thing, Sridhar. I think, people can say whatever now, right? Like Shador, okay, this is kind of second round pick, this, that. But um, when it comes, like actually when it's drafting time, I think there's teams like the Giants and Jets and all that, right, who have had quarterback issues for a long time now. Um, they face that pressure, which is like, okay, another year we're going to punt on this position. And even for these teams, right? Like, so there's a rumor that Cleveland, what they'll do is Cleveland or Giants, that they don't
Mm,
have to take Shador. They don't think highly of him at 2 or 3. So what they can do is take Hunter, Carter, and then come back into the first round and get Shador Sanders or whichever quarterback they like, which is in theory,
mm,
it's a good idea, right? But there itself, you have two teams who would want to do that, Giants and Browns. Pittsburgh doesn't have a quarterback. Really, like they really literally don't have a quarterback.
mm,
It's like a backup guy. New Orleans is looking for a quarterback because Derek Carr is going to probably miss the season, right? So they don't really have a quarterback. And there are other teams like Rams and all that, maybe even Goff, like with Lions, right? They're looking for kind of the next guy. It's good to develop that pipeline of quarterbacks. So if I'm Giants and Cleveland, like there's no guarantee that I can package enough picks and pull back into the
mm,
first round to take Shador or Jackson Dart or one of these guys, right? So it's like a risk. And then it's like if they miss on that, it's like, oh my God, like another year we go without having any solution, not even a dart, throw a dart at that, right? And what are they going to get by starting like Russell Wilson for a year, right? I don't think they're going to
mhm,
get much, right? So that's
mm,
the real interesting dynamic where strategy can be great, but like when it comes to that, when the clock is ticking and all that, right? Do some of these teams cave in and say, you know what? I know Shador's not the right one at this spot, but we might not get a shot at him, and he's the next best quarterback, and we need a quarterback. So anything can happen.
yeah. So let me ask you this though. I mean, right now it seems that these are the players that a lot of the mock drafts are saying, and that's pretty much the same thing. It doesn't matter where you go. That's pretty much the order a lot
Hmm.
of people are giving. Where do you ever think that uh, the trades, those are the ones that could append how these teams are going to pick? Um, and even the Patriots, I've heard like a lot of things, right? You have like if somebody, I mean, especially the name that has been thrown around is AJ Brown from Philadelphia. He's won a Super Bowl ring with the Eagles. He's always been close to Mike Rabel, but the question is, would Patriots or would the Eagles right now pick what 30th right now?
32nd,
I mean, they won the
32nd.
Super Bowl.
Yeah, 32nd.
Yeah,
Yep.
32nd. They won the Super Bowl, so they'll pick last in the first round. So would they make that trade for a first rounder or a second rounder, and then
Yeah, I mean,
they would pick?
anything is possible, but you got to assume that, I mean, that needs a big assumption, right? Like, why would they just won the Super Bowl? Why would they get
Mhm.
rid of their best receiver? right? Like I think good teams want to keep their talent as instead of like just. I mean, anything's possible, man. Like maybe they like one of these first round receivers, and they're like, hey, we'll get this guy. We think he can be the next AJ Brown,
Hmm.
and let's get rid of AJ Brown and his big fat contract, and he's kind of sometimes not happy because we are a run heavy offense, right? So anything is possible. I would love for that trade to happen. I think AJ Brown would be. I'm actually, over and above any of the receivers in this draft. I think because there's no elite first round receiver. Like last time, there was at least like two or three of them. There's nobody
You
like
had
that.
Malik Neighbors. You had
Marvin Harrison Jr., right?
Marvin Harrison Jr. Yeah,
Odunze went
number
third,
four.
and then the guy in Jacksonville, I'm forgetting his name. He was pretty good. He was the fourth receiver, and all four had Brian Robinson. No, Brian
Fine. Yeah.
BTJ. Yeah. So yeah, I would love that trade. I I think the general feeling also seems to be that because of what I mentioned earlier, right? Like like someone at 4 and someone at 25 is not like the usual difference in caliber. Like I'm sure there's still a difference, but not the usual difference. So people are saying like this is not a draft where like a team like Patriots can like, oh, we'll just trade down. Like you got to find someone. Like if the
Mm.
top three guys are gone, right? If everyone believes that those were the elite guys, then what's the incentive for any team to come up to number 4 and say we want to come up to 4, right? I think the only way that happens is if the buzz for Shador develops, and even if the Giants don't take him, now suddenly like Jets want Shador, Raiders want Shador, New Orleans, Pittsburgh, right? All these teams want him, and they get the rumor spreading that one of these teams is going to get him. Then there could be a sort of a uh, competition
Mm.
between them to go up. But otherwise, I think the only other scenario I can think of actually is where we are at number 4, Giants take Shador, and now we have Abdul Carter. I think actually that will generate more interest in teams wanting to go and get Abdul Carter. I think we might
Mm.
actually get more offers for that scenario than if Shador's
Then attack.
right.
Yeah.
Then Shador's
Yeah.
up for grabs because they got people teaming, giving up very important draft capital. You have to do it for someone whom you believe is like a stud, right? Otherwise, you just wait, right? Like you just wait and wait for that guy to drop to you. So yeah, I mean, if we take like a Patriots view, right? I think there's like three scenarios. I think the what seems to be the most likely scenario is like we discussed, Hunter Carter are gone, and they take Will Campbell. They don't they don't get any trade offers, or they don't entertain any trade offers. They're like, we're going to keep it simple. This is our biggest hole. Yes, in another year, a number 4 pick, we could have gotten a better player, but this is what it is. And rather than get a pass rusher at 4, or a tight end at 4, or running back at 4, or whatever else at 4, or a receiver at 4, let's get tackle, because that is our biggest hole by far on the roster, right?
Right.
And you invest in
That
the
was ranked one of the worst in the NFL last year.
absolutely, and you invest in Drake May, it's all about him, right? So that to me, that's still probably like a 60-70% probability scenario, to be honest with you. Like that to me is the likely scenario. Um, the second scenario is we don't we we don't draft him. We like someone else at 4. It's possible, right? I mean,
Possible.
I've heard convincing arguments being made by people saying like we should draft Ashton Genty because that can help a quarterback too. If you've got like a elite running back, the Georgia guy, Jalon Walker, I think he's getting a lot of like, I think he's like considered to be like a Rabel guy. He's got like great intangibles, great production. Mike Reese from ESPN Boston. I mean, he's plugged in, and I think he has opined that what he thinks likely will happen is a coin toss between Will Campbell and a top edge guy in their eyes, whoever that might be. That might be Jalen Walker. That might be someone else, right? So there is that possibility that they actually don't pick Campbell, and they kind of that will be a very risky move, but that's possible. And the third possibility is a trade. You got to find trade partners for that. For me, the best scenario is you trade down. Well, the best scenario for me is if you get Abdul Carter, like or Travis Hunter. That's number one. Number two is you still draft out of everyone else. I still like Will Campbell, Sridhar, because of the position. But if I'm being greedy, I would love to like trade down to like 7, 8, something like that, and still get Will Campbell. So that would be the best scenario. But You can't bank on those things, man. All it takes is someone ahead of you to jump and take that guy, and then you're just kind of screwed. So
So let's quickly talk about the Patriots. The Patriots have, obviously, we know the number 4 pick. I think the second round they have the 38 pick. I think third round they have the 69 pick, and the third round they have, so they have two third
right,
rounds.
69, 77. Yep.
And then there's, I mean, we'll get to the fourth and fifth. I mean, that's more. But I think the first 3 rounds are the ones, the 4 picks in that. Obviously, we know they have a very promising young quarterback. They do have a decent tight end group, pretty decent cornerback group. They have a lot of cap space, new coach. Um, and from the weaknesses, we just talked about it. The offensive line is probably one of the weakest in the NFL. They picked up Stephon Diggs. They picked up Hollins, but again, I
I,
still think
I
their
think receiver, at
depth is
least
missing.
last season, was one of the worst in the league, just like the offensive line was one of the
Right.
worst. And by the way, the offensive line, people blame the tackles. I don't think the interior play was that great either last year. So, yeah, I agree. Those were the holes. I think they've done, I mean, they tried to plug both, right? They got the right tackle, right? What's his name? The free agent. They got,
Yeah, yeah, I
um,
think I know on the offensive side of things,
yeah, they got him. They got the
um,
center. I don't know how good he is, Bradbury, but he's a veteran.
and yeah,
So they've got
yeah, and then
some
on the
veteran presence.
defensive side, they picked like Landry. They picked up edge for the edge. They picked up Landry. Um,
Right, but we're talking
I
about like
think
just offensive line and receiver, right? Which were the
oh,
weakest
the
parts.
offensive
And
line
the
receiver,
receiver, like I think Stephon Diggs, if he's healthy, I think
the Morgan
that's a
Morgan Moses maybe
yeah. Morgan
the
Moses,
offensive,
Moses is the right tackle.
and then Schweitzer the guard, right?
Yeah, but he's like a backup guy.
And then center is a Bradbury. Yeah,
Right. So they've kind of done a little bit on both, but like right now, your starting left tackle on the roster is Vederian Love. I don't even think there's any other pure left tackle, right? Like they want to try Caden Wallace there, who's always plays right tackle, has a body like a right tackle. So it's like pretty bare.
right, right. So I think that's where I mean they're going to be thinking that way. I mean, there's a lot of needs, obviously, um, and then the running back. That's an interesting one because they got Ramondre, so it depends on where Ashton falls. But I mean, he's probably going to be in the first round, so
Oh,
probably
he's
going to be
going to be a
gone
top 10, top 10 pick for sure,
easily.
I think.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
another guy,
And I think so.
Mario
If you
Hampton,
ask
who's
me,
also considered like at least a top 20 pick, if not a top 10 to 15 pick. So I think there's definitely two running backs, maybe even three in the first round. But this is a deep running back class. And I think, Sridhar, I think they need more of a passing back. I think between Ramondre and Gibson, you give Ramondre a decent offensive line, which he didn't have last year. We know he's
hmm,
good. And I hope he can
yes.
get past his fumbling problems, right? But otherwise, he's good. So we need like a true
Then it all points down is Will Campbell. That's what it
right,
points down
right. That's another
right
reason,
now.
right? Like it helps not only May, but it helps the running backs as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think it's a ripple effect, right? You get a good
totally,
offensive lineman. I mean,
totally.
I think if you go back to any team in the past, I mean, teams, even very good teams, like even let's take Kansas City, for
Hmm.
example, the loss that they had against Tampa many years ago and the loss that they had against the Eagles was
Yep,
attributed to just one thing.
yep.
The offensive, it doesn't matter if you're Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady.
Right.
If you don't have good offensive line play, you're going
I
to be
agree.
scrambling or you're going to be getting sacked
I agree.
throughout the
I
game.
agree.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Yeah.
another reason not to. That's why I'm against taking Ashton Genty. Like for us, I mean, I'm kind of against that just because I would never want a running back that high. I think it's too much of a risk. Because
Right.
running backs
Right.
last 5 years, remember? Like 5, 6, 7 years, maybe if you're lucky, like at high production. I mean, a good offensive tackle, if Will Campbell turns out to be good, I mean, he could be a left tackle for like 10 years, 12 years. I mean, the good ones, obviously
Yeah. Yeah.
they'll cost money, right, to keep them. But
Well, after like 3 or 4 years, they're going to cost you
I know,
a
but like the
lot more money.
longevity is much higher at that position, right? So if you think in terms of like a foundational piece, I think there's more value in a good, right? And the other reason I don't want Ashton, I don't, we've discussed this before. I mean, we need to have a good running game, no doubt about it. But I don't want us to be a running team. And that is my one fear. Rabel had a Derrick Henry, and I think that was great. But then it kind of most often than not in the playoffs it didn't serve them well because If you don't have a good
Mm.
defense, and if the other team suddenly puts you in a 14-point hole, what do? You have to abandon your run game, right? And then in the playoffs, like teams like KC and Cincinnati and others like Buffalo and Baltimore, they'll put that scoreboard pressure, right? So I've, I want us to be a pass first team. We still need to have like how we were with Brady. We still had good running games at times. And a lot of times, when things were not going good in the passing game, the running game would bail us out. Like Josh would call like a few running plays to calm everything down. So we need that, but I don't want us to be a run first team. So that's why I don't want like. I think if a team that invests in Ashton Genty and all that, they're probably going to be a run first team, and I don't think we should be that. When we have Drake May as quarterback.
Right. Yeah. So I think this is going to be an exciting time for the Patriots. I mean, see how far they can go this year from 4-win team. Um, Sometimes maybe we should have probably hoped for a 3-win team, just would have got the number one pick. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, um, so the last win doesn't count. That's what I'm going to say. So when they talk about improvement, it's good. Got to be anything got to be more than three. At least 8, 7, 8. That could be like a good success for first year head coach Mike Rabel. So this is where we are. We're just about 3, 4 days separated from this draft. Any last minute uh, your surprises that you think could happen? I mean, you gave me your top 10 pick,
Mm-hmm.
but what do you think could be the surprises in the first round? I mean, apart from, because I think it's going to be a ripple effect. Like one team doesn't take a player, then that's going to ripple through the rest of
Right.
the
But just because what
draft.
everyone is saying is the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and like some player who might be a number 10 on someone's board might be more of a number 20 on other board. So I don't know if that's going to qualify surprise. I think to me, the only surprise generally is around quarterbacks. Certainly if there's a little bit of a panic like what happened last year, and suddenly instead of just one quarterback in the first 20 odd picks, now there's like 3 or 4, right?
Hmm.
That would surprise me. Um, that would be a surprise. I actually have a question for you.
Hmm?
You rightly pointed at like our first top 4 picks, right? In the up to round 3, right? What would make you happy if you come away with what? Not necessarily specific players, but like positions maybe. Or if you have players in mind, that's great too. I have my
Oh, you
opinion too,
mean for
but I
the
want to ask
Patriots?
you first.
Are you talking about the
Oh yeah, yeah,
Patriots
yeah. Of
specifically?
course, of course, yeah.
Of course, of course. Um, I think Will Campbell is the guy I probably want,
Mm-hmm.
because the only reason being he may be your safe bet. That would make me happy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, but I think Campbell will be still there for the Patriots. I definitely think Cam Ward is going one, um, as we discussed, and think Travis Hunter is going two, and then um, and we said, right. I mean, we have Abdul Carter going three for the Giants. Uh, it would be shocking for me if the Browns and the Giants don't pick Travis Hunter. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if Travis Hunter drops to
Oh
four,
my God,
and
that's
Travis
a
Hunter,
dream scenario. Yeah.
which I don't think it's going to happen. But since you asked me, safe bet, I think it's going to be Will Campbell, getting a tackle for the quarterback Drake May. That will open up not just his game, but also the running game. And then, Josh will always dial up something if you have a good, and he's going to be your day one starter. I mean, there's no doubt about it, right? So that would make me happy. Like if they ended up with Will Campbell, I'll be thrilled.
Mm-hmm.
If for some reason Travis Hunter falls in,
Right.
again, I still don't know the verdict on him. Is very interesting, but I don't know. I mean, call me stupid or different, but I still think if you have Travis Hunter and Will Campbell, I don't know. I think
I think you take 100 for
take
sure. Yeah.
then you
You
take
take the
well. I don't know.
significantly better player. Now, I think in that scenario, you just should be willing to give up, the third round or whatever it takes, and come back up and get like a Josh Connolly or Josh Simmons or one of John Connolly, one of these
Another tackle.
tackles
Yeah,
who maybe
yeah.
might not be as good as Campbell, but because there's Dantes Carnegie has said this. I think Josh has hinted this, like, or like maybe Dante has said this about Josh. Like, you don't need, like, I don't think Nate Solder was like the best left tackle in the league when he played, right? So I think their point was you need someone who's like above average, slightly above average, but you don't need this like Jonathan Ogden, Orlando Pace kind of guy, right? So by that argument, if you get Hunter or Carter at 4, and then you somehow, it's a big risk, but somehow you get like a tier 2 player and think that's good enough, that's still better than having Redarian Love and like a bunch of street free agents, right? At left tackle. Who knows? I mean, so for me, Sridhar, yes, I agree with you. Like the ideal scenario is Carter. I think I would like Hunter first, then Carter, right? Like, but I'm being realistic. I mean, if if the draft is how everyone's saying and these are the elite players, why would Cleveland and Giants not want to? Why would they want to trade away an elite player? Like I just don't understand that, right? Like so not trade, but like not pick. Realistically, I would love for us to like not be sexy, take Will Campbell, because what happens is if you take Will Campbell at 4, I think I think this is what's gonna happen. If you do that, I think at 38, you're gonna have some really highly rated players slip to you. Because what's gonna happen is you're gonna have some of these teams trading back into the first round, into the 20s to go after
Hmm.
quarterbacks. And I think there's a chance that Shador, Jackson Dart, maybe Milrow, maybe that Shuck guy, whatever, right? Like there's a chance suddenly 3 or 4 quarterbacks go in like mid 20s to mid 30s before our 38 pick. And I think what happens then is suddenly like maybe it's a corner, maybe it's an edge guy, maybe it's a linebacker, maybe it's
Hmm.
so Mason Taylor. He's Jason Taylor's son. He's like a really good tight end. Like he's just in that end of first round, middle of beginning of second round kind of guy, right? So someone like that slips to you at 38. I think 38 is like a opportunistic pick for us. I think we have to take the best player available because now you're taking care of Will Campbell at 4. So you remember last year the corner who slipped to the Eagles. So last year all these quarterbacks got taken. There was a run on receivers. So what that did was a few good defensive players. It got pushed into the early 30s, and that's where Eagles, the Cooper DeJean, like for example, right? Like,
Yeah, and then he made such
and
a big
he's a good
impact
player.
all
Like
the way
everyone,
to play.
even in the pre-draft thing, he was considered like a first round, like borderline first round pick. And all I'm saying is, there's always like these a few players who just slip because like like nobody will tell you that like there are 4 quarterbacks after Cam Ward who are like top 30 players or top 35 players. Nobody will say that. But because of the pressure on drafting quarterbacks, that run might happen. Or maybe a run on receivers, maybe a run on tackles. I want a run on tackles. If we pick Will Campbell, I want like everyone else to be gone in the first 20 picks. So that I think there's a good chance that either a tight end or a good receiver or like a defensive player, like especially a corner, a really good one might slip to us. And I think 38 is our
In
pick,
spite of the fact that,
right?
yeah,
38 is
in
a
spite
pick
of the
for
fact that
that.
the Patriots are
I think they're third round receivers also. So if you really want to make uh, Drake's life easier and want to pick a receiver with upside, I think it's possible to find those in the third round. So you can always go
right,
receiver in
right,
third round, and the other pick is again whatever the best player available, defense, offense, whatever, right? Like so, I think in some ways, if the draft plays out like how we think it will, and if they make the no-brainer Will Campbell thing, I think it sets them up for success for the rest of the draft.
right. Yeah, no, I think this is exciting time to be for a Patriots fan, especially after the home run they hit last year with Drake May. Um, I think now you want to surround him with all the key pieces, and then you have a new coach, you have a new uh, system that's going to be in place on the offensive side of things, and then you've made some moves in the off season by getting Landry for the edge. So hopefully you can get some more good defensive
Mhm.
players. I mean, and then uh, get that wide receiver that you talked about in the late second and third round, and then hope for the best.
And
So
man, like
yeah,
be in contention for the playoffs, even worst case. I mean, I think going from where we were, bottom of the league, to making the playoffs would be a huge leap, right? I think that might be too much to hope for, maybe. But be in the mix. Like it, I don't want another season to be over by week 8 or something like that, right? Like it's you remember how 2022 was, where we were not that good, but I think we still finished 7-9, and we went into
hmm,
Buffalo. And if we won that game, it was tall odds going into Buffalo and beating Buffalo, but like we could have been in the playoff contention if we won that game, and we didn't. because we gave up 2 punt
Hmm.
returns, but at least we're we're in the mix, right? I think we ended up 8 and 9. I might be wrong. We might have been 7 and 10. I don't remember now.
Yeah.
But I know we were like in the mix at least. So I think that would be a huge success to go from like what, four. One was a garbage win. It wasn't even a real win. So to go from like a genuine 3-win team to like a 7-8 win team, I think that would be success.
And then if you get your breaks along the way, you know that sometimes the 7 and 8 teams are the teams that they get a couple of breaks, and then the 2 losses immediately become instead of 8, it becomes 2 wins,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah,
becomes
yeah,
like
yeah. Anything can happen,
you
right?
just like that it becomes 9
Yeah,
and
I think it's too
something.
far
N-
fetched. I mean, who knows? I shouldn't say that, but I think it's
Yeah,
a little bit unrealistic to expect that drastic a change. But it has happened before. It happened with Houston with CJ Stroud, right? So
happens.
it
It happens
happens.
with every
Yeah,
team.
yeah, yeah.
You just have
But I'll tell you
you know
this.
what all you need is
But you need to hit on your players. That's the thing. I mean, all these a lot of these free agents need. We know all free agents won't work out, but most of them need to work out. And then in the draft, it's almost like I don't care where we pick, whom we pick, whoever we pick needs to work out. We can't afford like more first round, second round busts, which we have had lately, right? So we can't have the Cole Strangers and the Isaiah Wins and those kind of guys. Sonny Michelle, is like good for 2 seasons. That's it, right? So like we've had like a lot of
yeah.
crappy picks, the receivers last year and all that stuff. So we need to at least these first 4 players, fourth round onwards, who knows, man? I mean, right? We need one Matka, one like, you know, fourth, fifth, sixth rounder, like or seventh rounder, Julian Edelman, undrafted, whatever. Like we need like a couple of success stories because you look at like some of the good teams, like like George Kittle, he's like a third or fourth rounder, right? Like Fred Warner, he's not a very high pick. Like there are these a
Oh,
lot of
well,
these
think about
NFL stars, yeah, who are like third, fourth. I mean,
yeah.
Kansas City, Chris Jones was like I think only a second rounder. I don't even think he definitely wasn't a first rounder. He might have even been third rounder or a second rounder, right? Like some of the studs that they have. Like look at the Eagles' offensive line. Their left tackle as part of their jumbo offensive line. He's like a fourth, fifth round pick, right? So I really think we need one of these later picks, just like Michael Onwenu. He worked out as a sixth round pick. We need someone like that,
Yeah.
especially along the offensive line too, because I'm sure we'll be double dipping into the offensive line. Like maybe after the first
Oh,
pick, it might be in the fourth, fifth, sixth round, maybe or seventh round, but I'm sure we'll be double dipping or even triple dipping, right? Like just to throw more darts at the position. So
yeah. There was a time when Bill Belichick was the head coach. We picked like 3 offensive
and like
linemen.
only Sidisa was on the roster.
Please.
It's a disaster. Yeah, it's not been a great last few years. But I'm saying hit on the first 4 players because you can get starters up to the third round. So you in 77 is like not even the end of third round. It's like almost the beginning or mid of the third
Yeah.
round. So you got to hit on those 4 players, and we need one random late round pick to be like suddenly above expectation. I think if we get like 5 decent players out of the draft, which is a lot, and with the free agent additions, I think we could be off. And you bank on some second year improvement with the second year jump, from May. And
Mhm.
given that we got nothing out of like Jalen Polk, like this year, anything he does will be an improvement. So those are reasons
Right.
for hope.
Yep. Okay. That was good. All right. Let's hope and see what happens. I'll be traveling that day, but I think I'll be keeping my yours because I
Yeah,
think after the 4th pick, I think
well, no, yeah.
we'll know.
And
All right.
we
Thanks
should
again,
probably do
Amit.
one once the
The
draft actually happens, right? Like once the draft is over, we
Yes,
should do a post draft
of
portion of
course.
it. Cool.
Post draft wanted to see if this is what we ended up with.
Yep. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, Amit. Good
Alrighty.
night. Have a
Take
good
care.
night. Yeah. Bye.
Thank you for listening. Primo will be back soon.